Hi and welcome to Poor Pete's. I'm Pete. In today's video I wanted to show starting off your bow. And I thought about various aspects. One of them, what do you anchor your material to? And right now I have a workbench. I've enjoyed this workbench. I enjoyed making this workbench. I made this workbench work for me in a small confined shop. This is a detached garage that we do various things inside of. You'd be surprised if I turned around the camera to see all of what we do. Right now you might hear baby chicks in the background peeping, and that's because we're starting to hatch out eggs. I love this time of year, but we have a smaller confined space, but we use it to the best of our ability. This workbench is able to be moved around with whatever project I'm working on at the time. You might be in a smaller confined space. You might be in an apartment. You might be in a smaller house, a duplex. You might have a large property, but you might not have a workbench. You might not have anything that you think that you can start working on with a bow. Well, I challenge you to, if you want to make a bow, think outside the box. So let me show you the project that I'm going to be working on. Now, I'm going to be building a bow for a good friend of mine who's going to be moving. And he wanted to build a bow for a long time. And I've had him come over and work in the garage with a bow and get started and everything like that. Actually, with this bow stave right here. But he kind of just put it away, and he's a real super busy guy. And he's going to be moving away. So he gave me some Osage orange wood, which is another way that you can get bow wood, is just people just giving it to you because they find out that you like that stuff. So I appreciate that. You know, it's good to have friends. And he gave me some Osage orange wood, and he said, you know what, you might as well just go ahead and have this stave. And I said, well, I'll make you a bow out of it. So it's a pretty good size stave. It's old, it's dried, and it's ready to go. Osage orange, you want it to dry for a long time, at least a year, if not longer. You can throw it up in your attic or any space that, you know, is out of the way, and you can just forget about it. But this is nice and dried wood. So the first thing I did, it's a rather large stave, so I cut it in two. And to cut this in a rip cut, which is along the grain, not across the grain, is a little bit harder for saws to do. So I used a, what do you call it, a reciprocating saw or a sawzall with a large wood blade on it. And it did the job. So if you look at this, I followed the grain. So when I build these, I'll have two matching bows. They should both be the same. So that's going to be really exciting right there. Let me put this one off to the side. And let me show you this one. So here we are right here, and you can look at the end grain of that wood right there. Excellent wood. Excellent wood. You can see that the early wood and the later wood are, the early wood growth is very small, like we've talked about, and the later wood growth is really large. That's exactly what we want to see. Another reason why I would like to use this to show you is it does have a little bit of twist in there, and it's not perfect. So it's a good bow for starting out with, but it has some things that I can also hopefully demonstrate how to overcome. And one of them is a little bit of a twist. If you can see that right there, you can see that one end is a little bit, if I line up this end flat, then you can look at that and is a little bit at an angle. It's got some character to it. Another thing that it has is some checking. And if you can see right there, there's some cracks in it. And I filled those with crazy glue. And you can see there's some more cracks. So I filled those with some crazy glue. So crazy glue is really good because it's a really thin glue. It can go down inside that wood and get really deep and harden and just stay right there. And all we're needing that wood to do is just hold still. Hold those fibers down on the back of the bow that I talked about from ripping away. One thing you want to look for with cracks is you want to make sure that you don't have cracks on the end by the knot. You don't want them running off. And that's what I mean about your grain running off on a piece of Osage. So if this crack right here, it runs straight down, disappears. If it were to run off the side, that's going to be a spot that if I flip this bow around, that's going to be a spot that when you bend the bow, since it's running off, it has that fiber that can begin to lift. It's not very well supported. It can begin to lift and rip that bow away. So what I did was I tried to go down as far as I can with still staying, you know, with enough material right here to make my limbs. But I tried going down as far as I can on the rings, and we're going to get started with the back of the bow. One thing I wanted to show you that I didn't film was this part right here. Here's a knot in the bow, and you can see it's a very good knot, but this branch actually broke off and died. But as the outside of the tree, I should actually hold it up like this. That branch right there broke off. And as the tree, because this is the bark side, as the tree began to grow, it actually grew over it. So I don't like going through knots. They're very hard. But what I did was I took this chisel and I took a hammer. You have access to these items. I got right here and chiseled that, and it just broke right off. So that makes that really easy to get rid of. And now we can start working with a draw knife. So I'll leave that to the side. Now let's talk about some tools that you need. Now, for this video, I'm going to be showing you how to work the back of the bow with a draw knife. So number one, you need a draw knife. There's a lot of different types of draw knives. This is a French style draw knife, and it has these circular grips, and I really like them a lot. They fit my body. My hand can cup right inside that round grip, and I can just pull that towards me. Another thing I really like about this is, if you can tell, it has a slight arch to it. So that arch creates a very friendly spot for me, because a lot of times when you're working, you're going to be working on the corner and you're going to be cutting it. You're going to be cutting the other side of the corner, and you're going to be making a peak in the center. And this is how you take down wood fast. So you work from one corner because you're cutting the least amount of wood. You're taking down the other corner, and then you can take down the center after you make it a peak. And that's what you do. You just work the corners with a draw knife. That's what I found. So you might ask me, how sharp does your draw knife need to be? Everybody's different, but for me, I'll show you what I do. And it's very simple. Here's an old stone that I broke. I dropped it, and I crazy glued it back together, but I've always been dissatisfied with it ever since then. So I switched over to a different type of stone, but I use this for various aspects of stuff I really don't care about. So here's the draw knife. There's a bevel right here. I can put this down. If I feel like I need to sharpen it, I can rub this on there. And I can rub that just back and forth along that bevel and kind of smooth it. But here's something you might be a little bit surprised to see me do. If you see the edge of this, and I know a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I'm going to show you that if I take this stone and I run it on the edge of that, that's not making a sharp knife. But you know what? This doesn't have to be a sharp knife. And I want it to be a dull knife. I just want it to have a good bevel on there and be good and comfortable in my hands. But I want it dull, and I'll show you when we start working the back of this bow. A towel works really well for me if I'm working off of a bench. Like I said earlier, it just conforms that bow. The back of this is all different dimensions and gnarly, and the workbench is pretty smooth, so this just helps conform that. And then I use these clamps. So, and I just clamp it Gonna start working this other side. So and I can just clamp it just down just like that. So here's the ring that I'm working, that I want to get the bow down to. One solid ring. Here's a ring separation right here. This is the ring right above it. And if we come this way, if you can see this spongy area right here, here, all around right here, those spongy, real just porous type of material, that's that early growth that I'm talking about. And then here is the next continuation of a ring right here. Okay? So the reason why I'm showing you the differences of the rings is so you can see me take this off and you can see how I do it. You might do it different. Everybody does things differently. So I take that and I start working it. And you can hear that crunch. You hear that That's just that crunch. And I tell you what, that dull knife is gonna let that crunch happen, and it's actually going to prevent you. If you had a sharp knife, it's easier to go through and really dig in. And this is actually gonna really stop you from doing that, which is just gonna save you a lot of time, a lot of heartache in the long run. You know, this is something that old men and young men and women and children can do. Doesn't take a whole lot, I found. Really just takes stopping everything that you're doing in your life, figuring something out, and problem solving. It's a very relaxful way of working and living. So now let's look at our finished product. So if we get real close right here, you can see, let me try and get that camera to zoom in. See that sponginess right there? That's that early growth that I was talking about. And I leave that all over that bow for a couple different reasons. Number one, it's easy for the card scraper to take that off. Very easy. Number two, it kind of protects the wood. As I start working on the back side of this wood, and that looks like a little pin knot right there. Where's that at? I see it better on the camera than I do right there. Wow. Something's there. But it protects and there's that checking. See that checking? It's filled in with crazy glue, and that crazy glue is going to harden and just hold it there. See that? We don't want that one to run off. And there it is. And you can see that. Let me see. Let me get a better picture. See that? you can see that extra material I left around that right there. That's what you want to see. And then you can knock it down a little bit later when you finish your bow. But I think it kind of protects the back of your bow a little bit, because as you begin to work it, I'm clamping it down in the face right there and everything like that, and it kind of gets yellow and dingy, and it starts you know, taking on some character and everything like that before you finish and you seal it. So it's really nice that after the bow's done, that I can come back to the back and I can begin working that with a card scraper. So I'll leave all this dingy kind of stuff on it until I'm really getting pretty close to finishing it. So the next part of this bow is going to be our layout of the side of our limbs and our handle and where our nocks are going to be. All right, let's do it.